to live only one day at a time. I learned to forget the yesterdays and to not think of the tomorrows. Each morning I said to myself, today is a new life. I have succeeded in overcoming my fear of loneliness, my fear of want. I am happy and fairly successful now and have a lot of enthusiasm and love for life. I know now that I shall never again be afraid, regardless of what life hands me. I know now that I don't have to fear the future. I know now that I can live one day at a time and that every day is a new life to a wise man.
Who do you suppose wrote this verse? Happy the man, and happy he alone, he who can call today his own, he who, secure within, can say, tomorrow, do thy worst, for I have lived today. Those words sound modern, don't they? Yet they were written 30 years before Christ was born, by the Roman poet Horace. One of the most tragic things I know about human nature is that all of us tend to put off living. We are all dreaming of some magical rose garden over the horizon instead of enjoying the roses that are blooming outside our windows today. Why are we such fools, such tragic fools?
How strange it is, our little procession of life, I wrote Stephen Leacock. The child says, when I am a big boy. But what is that? The big boy says, when I grow up. And then, grown up, he says, when I get married. But to be married, what is that after all? The thought changes to, when I'm able to retire. And then, when retirement comes, he looks back over the landscape traversed, a cold wind seems to sweep over it, somehow he has missed it all, and it is gone. Life, we learn too late, is in the living, in the tissue of every day and hour. The late Edward S. Evans of Detroit almost killed himself with worry before he learned that life is in the living, in the tissue of every day and hour. Brought up in poverty, Edward Evans made his first money by selling newspapers, then worked as a grocer's clerk. Later, with 7 people dependent upon him for bread and butter, he got a job as an assistant librarian. Small as the pay was, he was afraid to quit. 8 years passed before he could summon up the courage to start out on his own. But once he started, he built up an original investment of $55 borrowed into a business of his own that made him $20,000 a year. Then came a frost, a killing frost. He endorsed a big note for a friend and the friend went bankrupt.
Quickly on top of that disaster came another, the bank in which he had all his money collapsed. He not only lost every cent he had, but was plunged into debt for $16,000. His nerves couldn't take it. I couldn't sleep or eat, he told me. I became strangely ill. Worry and nothing but worry, he said, brought on this illness. One day as I was walking down the street, I fainted and fell on the sidewalk. I was no longer able to walk. I was put to bed and my body broke out in boils. These boils turned inward until just lying in bed was agony. I grew weaker every day. Finally, my doctor told me that I had only 2 more weeks to live. I was shocked. I drew up my will, and then lay back in bed to await my end. No use now to struggle or worry. I gave up, relaxed, and went to sleep. I hadn't slept 2 hours in succession for weeks, but now with my earthly problems drawing to an end, I slept like a baby. My exhausting weariness began to disappear. My appetite returned. I gained weight.
A few weeks later, I was able to walk with crutches. 6 weeks later, I was able to go back to work. I had been making $20,000 a year, but I was glad now to get a job for $30 a week. I got a job selling blocks to put behind the wheels of automobiles when they are shipped by freight. I had learned my lesson now. No more worry for me, no more regret about what had happened in the past, no more dread of the future. I concentrated all my time, energy, and enthusiasm into selling those blocks. Edward S. Evans shot up fast now. In a few years, he was president of the company. His company, the Evans Product Company, has been listed on the New York Stock Exchange for years. When Edward S. Evans died in 1945, he was one of the most progressive businessmen in the United States. If you ever fly over Greenland, you may land on Evans Field, a flying field named in his honor.
Here is the point of the story. Edward S. Evans would never have had the thrill of achieving these victories in business and in living if he hadn't seen the folly of worrying, if he hadn't learned to live in day-tight compartments. 500 years before Christ was born, the Greek philosopher Heraclitus told his students that everything changes except the law of change. He said, "You cannot step in the same river twice. The river changes every second, and so does the man who stepped in it. Life is a ceaseless change. The only certainty is today. Why mar the beauty of living today by trying to solve the problems of a future that is shrouded in ceaseless change and uncertainty, a future that no one can possibly foretell?" The old Romans had a word for it. In fact, they had two words for it. Carpe diem. Enjoy the day. Or, seize the day. Yes, seize the day, and make the most of it.
That is the philosophy of Lowell Thomas. I recently spent a weekend at his farm, and I noticed that he had these words from Psalm CXVIII framed and hanging on the walls of his broadcasting studio where he would see them often. "This is the day which the Lord hath made, we will rejoice and be glad in it." John Ruskin had on his desk a simple piece of stone on which was carved one word, "Today." And while I haven't a piece of stone on my desk, I do have a poem pasted on my mirror where I can see it when I shave every morning, a poem that Sir William Osier always kept on his desk, a poem written by the famous Indian dramatist, Kalidasa.
Salutation to the dawn, look to this day. For it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the verities and realities of your existence, the bliss of growth, the glory of action, the splendor of achievement. For yesterday is but a dream and tomorrow is only a vision, but today well lived makes yesterday a dream of happiness and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day. Such is the salutation to the dawn.
So, the first thing you should know about worry is this: if you want to keep it out of your life, do what Sir William Osier did. 1. Shut the iron doors on the past and the future. Live in day-tight compartments. Why not ask yourself these questions, and write down the answers? 1. Do I tend to put off living in the present in order to worry about the future, or to yearn for some magical rose garden over the horizon? 2. Do I sometimes embitter the present by regretting things that happened in the past that are over and done with? 3. Do I get up in the morning determined to seize the day to get the utmost out of these 24 hours? 4. Can I get more out of life by living in day-tight compartments? 5. When shall I start to do this? Next week? Tomorrow? Today?